He vanished from every screen on the planet. No video, no audio, no press conference, no podium appearance. Just cold text statements issued from an office, while missiles rained down on his country at a rate of 314 days. Benjamin Netanyahu, the wartime leader of Israel, a man who had been posting 1 to 3 video addresses every single day since this war began, went completely silent for nearly 4 days straight. And the world lost its mind. What followed was one of the most sophisticated, meticulously engineered information warfare campaigns ever deployed in a live conflict. A campaign built not to convince you of anything specific, but to make sure you never fully trust anything you see again. This is the full story. The lies, the real footage, the fake screenshots, the shaken Treasury Secretary, the six-fingered hand, and the one question at the center of all of it that nobody seems to be asking. Because here's the thing. By the end of this, the conspiracy you think you understand is going to look completely different. And the leader whose fate actually remains unknown isn't who you think it is. Let's go. To understand what happened, you need to understand the context. Because this isn't some peacetime political drama. This is a live shooting war. On February 28th, the United States and Israel launched coordinated military strikes on Iran. On day one of those strikes, Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei was killed. Read that again. The Supreme Leader of the Islamic Republic of Iran, dead. On day one, Iran didn't pause. Iran didn't negotiate. Iran started firing back almost immediately, and they haven't stopped. 300 ballistic missiles in 14 days, nearly half of them carrying cluster submunitions. These aren't warning shots. These are weapons designed to saturate an area and kill everything inside it. 9 people were killed in Beersheba on March 1st alone. This is the environment we're operating in. A full-scale, active shooting war between Iran, Israel, and the United States. The Strait of Hormuz, the narrow choke point through which roughly 20% of all global oil exports flow, effectively closed to Western shipping. 16 vessels struck since the conflict began. Oil prices back above $100 a barrel after nearly hitting $120 earlier in the week. This is the backdrop. Keep that in mind, because everything that happens next only makes sense against it. Between roughly March 7th and March 10th, something changed. Netanyahu went dark. Not quieter than usual dark. Completely, unnervingly dark. Before that window, he had maintained a disciplined wartime communications pattern, 1 to 3 video addresses every single day on his personal channels. That was his rhythm. That was his signal to his country and the world that he was present, in control, and leading. 1 day without video during an active missile war. Unusual. Worth noting. 2 days. Notable. Worth watching. He went dark for nearly 4 days straight. No camera. No audio. Just text statements attributed to his office. Now, in normal peacetime politics, a leader going quiet for 4 days is barely worth a headline. Politicians take weekends. They travel. They hold closed-door meetings. But this wasn't normal peacetime politics. This was a country absorbing ballistic missile strikes every 48 hours. This was a leader who had been publicly visible every single day for the previous week. The silence was deafening, and someone was waiting for exactly that. On March 10th, Iran's Tasnim news agency published an article. The article argued that Benjamin Netanyahu was either gravely wounded or dead. Now, before you roll your eyes, understand something critical about Tasnim. This is not a fringe blog. This is not some anonymous account posting on X. The United States Treasury Department has formally designated Tasnim as linked to the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC. When Tasnim publishes, it carries the institutional weight of the Iranian military establishment behind it. And the article didn't come out of nowhere. It pointed directly to the video silence. It cited the sudden expansion of the security perimeter around Netanyahu's residence. Hebrew language media had reported on March 8th that counter-drone defenses had been specifically deployed against suicide UAVs in that area. It pointed to a reportedly postponed or canceled visit from Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff, though Witkoff later indicated a trip could still happen. Then Tasnim went further. They cited former U.S. intelligence officer Scott Ritter, sourced through Russian state media, claiming Iran had struck Netanyahu's hideout and killed his brother, Edo Netanyahu. Zero evidence offered. Tasnim itself acknowledged the claims were unconfirmed. That disclaimer didn't slow anything down. The article was shared hundreds of thousands of times within hours. But here's where things get interesting. This wasn't even the first time the IRGC had gone after Netanyahu in its public messaging. Go back to March 2nd, the third day of the war. The IRGC released a statement through Iranian state television claiming that during their 10th wave of retaliatory strikes, their Khaybar Shirkan ballistic missiles had hit Netanyahu's office in Tel Aviv and the headquarters of the Israeli Air Force commander. Netanyahu's office called it fake news. The Times of Israel confirmed 0 missile impacts near the Prime Minister's office. Xinhua reported residents in the area saw no damage whatsoever. No satellite imagery. No video. No independent verification. Nothing. And in that same statement where the IRGC claimed to have leveled Netanyahu's office, they also announced they had shot down 3 American fighter jets over Kuwait. The Pentagon confirmed those 3 aircraft were brought down by Kuwaiti-friendly fire during an Iranian barrage. The IRGC was lying about the jets. Their credibility on the Netanyahu claim was identical. But it didn't matter, because the seed had been planted. And within hours of the Tasnim article dropping on March 10th, social media was already on fire. Once the Tasnim article hit, the internet took over, and it did exactly what it was designed to do. Accounts began declaring Netanyahu had been assassinated. Others said he had fled to Germany, citing flight tracking data showing an Israeli government aircraft parked in Berlin. German officials confirmed the plane was there. Netanyahu was not on it. Posts claimed Mossad director David Barnea had been killed in a separate strike on Mossad headquarters. Others claimed his brother Ido was dead. That National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir had been targeted at his home. None of it was verified. Ben-Gvir posted a TikTok proving he was alive. Most of the other claims simply dissolved into the noise. But here's the part that most people completely miss. Most people assume these rumors spread organically. The chaos of war, panicked social media users filling information vacuums with speculation. That's not what happened. Every single one of these threads traces back to one IRGC press release, amplified by an outlet the U.S. Treasury is formally designated as an IRGC asset. This wasn't grassroots panic. This was a manufactured narrative seeded into an information environment that had already been carefully primed. The rumors didn't emerge from chaos. They were deployed into chaos. There's a massive difference, and it was only getting started. On March 12th, a screenshot began circulating on X. The screenshot appeared to show a post from the official Israeli Prime Minister's account. The post either acknowledged or failed to deny Netanyahu's death. The claim attached to it was irresistible. The post had been published and then rapidly deleted. The Israeli government had accidentally confirmed their leader was dead before scrubbing the evidence. Accounts with enormous followings declared it was over. Netanyahu was confirmed dead. The cover-up was real. The screenshot was a forgery. PolitiFact, Snopes, and other fact-checking organizations found no evidence the post ever existed. Grok stated directly that the screenshot was fake and that no deletion had occurred. The only recent item on the official Israeli PM account was a routine National Security Council announcement. But think about why this particular forgery worked so well. You cannot prove something was never posted when the accusation is that it was posted and then removed. The deletion claim made the fabrication structurally unfalsifiable to a casual viewer. By the time 3 separate fact-checking organizations had published their findings, the forged image had already been shared across every major platform: X, Telegram, Instagram, Facebook. This is a known technique in information warfare. Documented, studied, deliberately deployed. You don't forge something implausible. You forge something that confirms what people already believe. The audience had been primed for days. The bunker strike claim, the Tasnim article, the video silence. The screenshot didn't create the belief. It validated it. It gave people a concrete artifact to point to and say, "See, I told you." And then came the moment that fused everything together. Thursday, March 13th, Sky News, live broadcast. United States Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is sitting comfortably for an interview with journalist Wilfred Frost. His body language is relaxed, confident, the posture of a man who does this regularly and is completely at ease. At 10:22 in the morning, a female aide cuts in from off-camera. "The president wants you right away." Bessent's microphone is pulled. He leaves the shot. The aide tells the anchor he'll be 10 minutes. He returned at 12:07 in the afternoon. 107 minutes later, not 10 minutes. 1 hour and 47 minutes in the White House Situation Room. When Frost asked how the president was, Bessent stammered. The stammer was audible, visible, unmistakable. The president is in great spirits. The Iranian mission is proceeding well ahead of schedule. And then, completely unprompted, he volunteered something personal. He said he has a teenager considering military service, and that he would trust his child's life in the hands of the current military leadership. Watch the clip. It's publicly available. The contrast between the Bessent who left that interview and the Bessent who returned is striking. His hands are tense. His voice catches. One commentator noted the dead stiffness in his body language. Another wrote that whatever Bessent had been told in that room had him legitimately scared, and that the remark about his teenager read like a man reassuring himself, not the public. Social media instantly fused this with the Netanyahu thread. The conclusion was immediate and spread within minutes. Bessent had been called to the Situation Room and told Netanyahu was dead. The Treasury Secretary's shaken appearance was the confirmation everything else had been building toward. Here is what the interview actually contained after his return. Bessent spent the remainder of that appearance discussing the Strait of Hormuz, Iran's effective closure of the waterway. 16 vessels struck since the war began, oil back above $100 a barrel, the possibility of a U.S. Navy escort program for commercial tankers. He confirmed the war had cost the United States approximately $11 billion. He stated he did not believe Iran had mined a strait, because Iranian and Chinese-flagged tankers were still passing through freely. A selective closure targeting Western and Israeli-linked shipping while permitting Allied traffic. That is not a random detail. A selective closure is a calculated economic weapon, not a military blockade. It means Iran is weaponizing the world's most important oil transit point in a surgically controlled way. 16 vessels struck, oil above $100. 20% of global oil supply disrupted. That's what a Treasury Secretary looks shaken about. That's what warrants 107 minutes in the Situation Room, not a foreign leader's health status. But by then, it didn't matter. The image of a visibly rattled cabinet secretary had been permanently fused to a narrative 4 days in the making. Context was irrelevant. The picture told the story people had already decided to believe. And then Netanyahu did something that backfired spectacularly. He held a press conference. On March 12th, Netanyahu stepped in front of cameras for the first time since the war began. Live broadcast. Israeli government press office logo on screen. He said Iran is no longer the same Iran. He said Israeli strikes had killed senior nuclear scientists and devastated the IRGC and Quds force. He called Iran's new supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, chosen on March 8th to replace his father, a puppet of the Guard Corps who cannot show his face in public. We'll come back to that last line, because it's the most important thing said in that entire press conference. But then someone took a screenshot. A single frame, captured mid-gesture, where Netanyahu's right hand appeared to show 6 fingers. The image detonated across X, Instagram, Telegram, and Blue Sky simultaneously. Everyone who follows AI-generated imagery knows this tell. Extra fingers. Distorted hands. It's one of the most widely known artifacts of synthetic media. The reasoning was immediate. 6 fingers equals artificial intelligence. AI video equals deepfake. Deepfake equals Netanyahu is dead and the Israeli government is using fabricated footage to hide it. There was additional fuel feeding this fire. Israel itself had been circulating AI-generated Persian language messaging featuring Netanyahu, actual synthetic content produced deliberately as a propaganda tool targeting Iranian audiences. That real use of AI in Israeli communications made audiences even more primed to assume that genuine footage might also be fake. PolitiFact examined the press conference video frame by frame and rated the 6-finger claim as pants on fire false. Snopes confirmed the footage was authentic. The anomaly was a shadow, a crease in Netanyahu's palm during a pointing gesture, visible in one single still image and absent in every frame before and after it. The full unedited recording was published by the government press office on YouTube, open to anyone who wanted to watch. But think about what happened here. Netanyahu went on camera specifically to prove he was alive. Social media took that footage and turned it into evidence that he was dead. The proof of life became the conspiracy. That is not a failure of fact-checking. That is information warfare functioning exactly as it was designed to function. The goal was never to convince everyone that Netanyahu is dead. The goal was to make sure that no one ever fully trusts the proof that he is alive. Let's step back and see the full picture. What you just witnessed over 14 days was a textbook information warfare operation built in layers. Layer 1. Establish a believable foundation. The IRGC claims to strike Netanyahu's office. No evidence, but the claim is out there, documented, time-stamped, attributed to a serious military organization. Layer 2. Introduce real ambiguity. Netanyahu goes dark for 4 days. The silence isn't manufactured, it's real, and it creates a genuine information vacuum that people desperately want filled. Layer 3. Seed the narrative through designated assets. Tasnim, a U.S. Treasury-designated IRGC outlet, publishes the death or wounding claim, amplified through Russian state media, distributed across Western social platforms. Layer 4. Flood the zone with unverifiable rumors. Flight tracking data, security perimeter expansion, canceled meetings, brother's alleged death, none confirmed, all circulated. Layer 5. Deploy a structural forgery. The screenshot that claims to show a deleted post, unfalsifiable by design, shared millions of times before fact-checkers can respond. Layer 6. Attach unrelated but emotionally resonant real events to the narrative. A shaken Treasury secretary, a 107-minute Situation Room meeting, real footage, real emotions, completely misattributed context. Layer 7. Turn the proof of life into additional evidence of conspiracy. A shadow on a hand becomes a sixth finger. A live press conference becomes a deep fake. Every layer feeds the next. Every fact check arrives too late. Every debunking gets ignored or turned into part of the cover-up. This is what modern information warfare looks like. Not crude propaganda, not obvious lies. A sophisticated, patient operation designed to corrode trust in verified reality itself. Remember that phrase the IRGC used on March 2nd? A cloud of uncertainty. That was their exact wording about Netanyahu's fate after claiming to have struck his office. They seeded that phrase deliberately. It became the intellectual scaffolding for everything that followed. But here is what should genuinely concern every analyst watching this war. As of today, Benjamin Netanyahu has been on camera. He has held a press conference. He has visited missile strike sites. He has appeared alongside Finance Minister Smotrich on camera from Jerusalem. His location is documented. His activities are recorded. His status is verified. Netanyahu is not the leader operating under a cloud of uncertainty. Mojtaba Khamenei is, Iran's newly elected supreme leader, chosen on March 8th by the Assembly of Experts to replace his father, who was killed in the opening strikes on February 28th, has not appeared publicly since being selected. Not once. He has not been seen speaking. He has not been photographed. Iranian state media read out a statement attributed to him on March 12th. Read out, not broadcast, not filmed, not shown. A text statement from a man no one has seen in 14 days. When Trump was asked directly about Mojtaba Khamenei's status, the answer was clinical. He said he thinks Khamenei's son is damaged, but probably alive in some form. Probably alive in some form. That is not reassurance. That is a careful, measured assessment from a president who is presumably receiving intelligence briefings of a leader whose survival and capacity to govern cannot be confirmed. The IRGC accused Israel of concealing the death of its prime minister. The IRGC has not produced its own supreme leader in 2 weeks. The conspiracy they manufactured about Tel Aviv is the reality they appear to be living in Tehran. And that asymmetry, a documented, publicly visible Israeli leader versus an Iranian supreme leader no one has seen since being selected, is the most important strategic fact of this entire information war, because it tells you something about who actually has the leverage here and who is more desperately trying to shape the narrative. Here is where we land. Every dramatic claim you've seen about Netanyahu's death traces back to a single IRGC press release, amplified by a U.S. Treasury-designated military propaganda outlet, distributed through Russian state media, and then carried the rest of the way by ordinary people acting in good faith who had been deliberately primed to believe it. The video silence was real. The fear was understandable. The information vacuum was genuine. But the conclusions drawn from all of it were engineered, manufactured, designed. The 6 fingers were a shadow. The screenshot was a forgery. The Treasury Secretary was dealing with a global energy crisis that threatens to reshape the world economy, not a dead foreign leader. And Netanyahu himself, the man declared dead, deep-faked, assassinated, and replaced by AI, gave a live press conference on March 12th, visited missile strike sites, met with his defense cabinet, and appeared on camera alongside his finance minister. He's alive. His actions are documented. His leadership, whatever you think of it, is functioning. Now contrast that with Tehran, a country that has fired 300 ballistic missiles at its enemies in 14 days, closed one of the world's most critical oil transit corridors, absorbed the loss of its supreme leader on day one of the conflict, and selected a replacement who has not been publicly seen, heard, or verified since being chosen. The IRGC spent 2 weeks telling the world that Benjamin Netanyahu's fate was wrapped in a cloud of uncertainty. The irony is almost too sharp to process, because the only leader in this war who is truly operating in the dark, unseen, unheard, unverified, isn't the one in Tel Aviv. It's the one in Tehran. And the question that should keep every serious analyst awake at night isn't whether Netanyahu is alive. It's whether Mojtaba Khamenei is capable of leading a nation through the most dangerous conflict in the Middle East in decades, and whether anyone inside Iran actually knows the answer to that question. Because in information warfare, the most dangerous lie isn't the one your enemy tells about you. It's the one they're telling themselves.